Alright, a few quick things before the video starts. This was exclusively on Patreon for my patrons, so that's why the video has the older style that I had. I did re-edit some parts though. I plan to post more exclusive videos on Patreon for whatever the patrons vote for. But that's about it. Onwards with the video. Ayo, what is up everyone? It is the Alpha J of the Alpha J Show, and let's talk Feral Friends. So the opening sequence is this live action scene where Patchy hypes up this event that happens every 100 years. So at first, you may think about this from a production standpoint and point out a lot of little things, like the cuts they may have to take and whatnot. However, from the aesthetic of trying this sort of Patchy atmosphere, I think this was handled here much better than a lot of other Patchy appearances. His role, when it comes to these live action scenes, generally lean towards the more cartoonishly exaggerated mood. I can tell that here, they tried capturing the spirit of SpongeBob, or really classic pre-season SpongeBob, and attempted to emulate it here, with the higher production, increased knowledge on conveying believable special effects, and the added range of being widescreen. For example, look at Potty. He looks like he got an overhaul or an upgrade. I also like how comically optimistic Patchy is, but also with the sense of reality and disappointment that SpongeBob often lacks. In fact, Patchy in his own way is a SpongeBob in real life, in spirit. And spirit is going to be today's word. And when I bring up Mimic Madness, I'll explain why. What's so fascinating is the production, and even on a critical level, picking at anything that they could have done better while it could help ultimately aids in the more diminishing returns valley. I'm sure this is great and anything better would have been icing on the cake. So with this long telescope that isn't affected, not effected, by the underwater murk catches a rarity. People actually caring about Sandy. I'm looking at you, squirrel jokes. Rodeo days and someone's in the kitchen with Sandy. Squirrely birthday, dear Sandy, squirrely birthday to you. Don't you mean happy birthday? Oh yeah, that's right. So Sandy gets this cake, and generally your casual, semi-watching fan may go, well, why is there fire underwater? Your general, extreme core fan may go, why one candle? Well, what's her real age? However, here on the Alpha J Show, I want to go even deeper. Why would they put a lit candle on a cake for a squirrel who, in order to be down here with these underwater critters, requires a glass dome to be around her head? Anyway, insert joke about Patrick being a gluttonous doof here, insert reference that Sandy likes karate here, insert joke about Squidward and misery. That is stuff that anyone who's ever watched SpongeBob knows is commonplace. In fact, Squidward being allergic to nuts is about as convincing as him being allergic to sea berry pie. But that's another episode for another day. We get a little Mr. Krabs and Puff, which I hear is not rare in post-sequel SpongeBob. However, poking her in the eye with a fork, that's not comfortable at all. But here is the most important part about this opening scene. This moon here is dubbed Neptune's moon, and it turns the Bikini Bottomites into their wild animal counterpart. This wouldn't be the first time this happens, as we've seen and we've had other episodes like UGG, SB129, and the ending of Pineapple Fever, where the characters seem to have gone primitive. Now, the thing that usually gets a lot of people with SpongeBob and other shows, like as far as detractors, is the you have done it already syndrome. And you start to play strings where they don't go. Am I saying that because they did this before, it's not okay? Of course not. But it's just something to note. In fact, doing things that they have done before, but with variation, makes it worthwhile, and it's 100% okay. It's what separates episodes like this from episodes like Goodbye Krabby Patty. So like I said, it turns the citizens into more realistic versions of their animal counterpart.
The Chinekins, give me some sugar.
I'm always a sucker for a good smooch.
I feel like I should cover this, because for all the times people like to pull the no continuity card, there's a clear indication that there is some continuity, just not a lot. The moon itself doesn't affect Sandy, but I thought it was because of her dome, she'd be able to protect herself. But it's because this moon has an if-then code where if you're classified as a sea critter, then you must be converted. I try not to question these things in the same manner which I don't question why Sandy attempts to move them before they get caught. It takes Squidward, who wasn't even there during the initial conversions, for Sandy to actually think, hey, maybe I should do something about this since I'm not getting affected.
Hey, put me down, Sandy! What are you doing? What is the meaning of...
Get in the shade!
1 second, before you call him, beep him when you want to reach him, let's back up a second. At no point did it occur to you to say, hey Squidward, that moon in the sky is dangerous, and you need to stick in the shade. Hey Squidward, this thing in the sky is attacking sea critters, or just, hey, I'm protecting you, and I will mention why in a moment. Why is it that Sandy's character is as dumb as a brick sometimes? But let's balance that out with something that any fan of SpongeBob has been waiting for. No, that's another episode. No, that's something else. Look, this is not a guessing game, it's a YouTube video, so let me explain. It's the return and actual appearance of the French narrator. We have heard him a lot, we saw him once in No Free Rides, but here he actually plays a major role, and I need to say this. We need more French narrator and Patchy together. Patchy and Potty are pretty okay, but we need Frenchie and Patchy. Now that seems like something to actually be hyped for. Heck, I would even watch it live.
Hello, French narrator speaking.
Hey, Frenchie! It's me, Sandy!
Ah, Sandy Cheeks. How is it hanging?
What's wrong with this photo? I can't put my finger on it. Speaking of that, is her entire hand backwards? Are we seeing the front of her or the back? Is it because I can't see the details on her suit that I'm assuming that she was wearing it backwards? Or is it something about the legs? Is one of them bent? I don't know, the photo looks wrong, and it's annoying the crap out of me. Anyway, Frenchie states that this green moon here, Neptune's moon, is a natural occurrence that happens every 100 years, which was Patchy's incentive to come to Bikini Atoll, which although is a perfectly legitimate reason, I'm sure he would have came here anyway. It's SpongeBob and he's their biggest fan. Nevertheless, this phenomena will end after 2 hours, bringing everyone to normal. However, because Squidward saw other sea animals pretty much eating each other and paying him no mind, he starts to make a fool out of himself, leaving the rock where no fish really saw him, making the fish pay him mind. This gets to a part where Squidward, defenseless and scared, is about to be devoured by a fish that is giving him all the time to cover for dramatic tension. What, did you not know a group of fish is called a school? And in schools, they can teach drama? Well then, sir, madam, non-binary atom, I think you need to take a refresher course in marine biology. However, Squidward then gets turned into an octopus who is hell-bent on eating everything in sight. And because Sandy is a part of that everything, Sandy is then pushed to retreat, taking her pharaoh friends with her. Pardon aside though, this is actually a great scene that involves Pearl. I would even say, although it isn't to the same level as the dragon scene in the pilot episode of DuckTales, or the David Hasselhoff scene in the first movie, it should be praised, as it rekindles that type of energy. And because they have a few scenes like Sandy going down the whale and pretty much struggling a lot, it makes the scene have a lot of weight. Now you may be thinking, this is all good and all, but what about Patchy? Let's see some more of Patchy. Well, we get to a point where the whale goes up and we get this majestic scene. I don't even care if you tell me about the production here. This scene is epic. Again, this show goes over the top, and it should for this scene. And you can tell that not only effort was put into it, but it isn't trying to insult your intelligence. It's clearly showing that it's supposed to be over the top. But unlike other shows, they also put effort into it. We get more of Patchy and Potty segments, which are kind of played out, and Sandy gets back to her tree dome. Once there, with this convenient aquarium, Frenchie starts explaining the different types of animals. This is probably one of my favorite scenes in SpongeBob, period. It's most likely going to be overlooked, but the way Frenchie explains the animals and how for some of them it matches their personality, or it's the exact opposite, is actually quite clever. I like the fight between Krabs and Puff, showing how ridiculous it would be for them to be together if it wasn't a cartoon. I like how SpongeBob filter feeds, which is a callback to I Had an Accident. Everything about this seems really cool, and it doesn't bog you down with continuous education. One of the things about SpongeBob in mid-seasons that I didn't really like is that SpongeBob became less and less like a sponge, or an underwater animal, and more like a person, with the plots as well becoming more realistic. This is why when I watch episodes like Yours, Mine, and Mine, my least favorite episode of the entire series, mind you, that I did an extra discussion on, one of my main issues is that this has no charm of a SpongeBob episode, and that it's played realistically for comedy, when the issue portrayed is fundamentally not funny to virtually anyone. Here, the show takes its roots of being a sort of marine cartoon, and it uses it without going overboard. Maybe this has something to do with the creator coming back, I don't know. But what I do know is that this is my favorite scene of the show so far, because it does something that watching SpongeBob in general has not been able to do for me in a long time. Make me feel like I'm watching a show that cares about the environment that it's trying to build. This episode cares that it's underwater, and it doesn't want you to forget that. Now, I'm not saying every episode should be like this. For one, I don't want every episode to have live action, but it doesn't hurt to at least do things that could only make sense because the characters are portrayed as sea animals. Anyway, the giant octopus comes back and breaks through. I also like this action scene a lot. Again, like I say in a lot of my comedic episodic reviews, the action doesn't have to be much because it's a comedy show, and the focus should be on making every joke work the best it can, with action being a secondary concern. Very impressed with my run of season 10 so far. This is much better than Mimic Madness, not even in the same league. When Sandy uses her tail to call Pharaoh Pearl, the whale and squid have a giant fight. Good thing neither of them were fighting to kill, but luckily their time is up and Neptune's moon goes back into hiding for another 100 years. It causes the scene here.
My clothes!
Yeah, Pearl's under siege, so yeah. Krabs and Puff go into different directions, but we know what they're going to do off camera. They're gonna put on their clothes, you perv. Oh, and Patrick has cakes. Holy. But before everything goes back to normal, this happens. She had a fake tail all along. Nice to see you're off the hook. I was gonna use that pun earlier to show that you didn't have a hook on your hand, but this joke would have worked a lot better there. Ugh. I give up. One possible reference to UGG, and this was Feral Friends. I really do enjoy this episode, and it's one of my favorites to come out of post-sequel SpongeBob. I'm impressed that the action was great, although they fall to some common cliches with certain characters. I enjoy that Larry got at least some recognition and some screen time. It's honestly better than Mimic Madness to me, and I'll explain why I feel this way. Mimic Madness, as good as an episode as it was, it didn't make me feel that invested. And SpongeBob is a comedy, and that episode, as funny as it is, the impressions seem to be the main joke of the episode, and because I didn't really find the impressions really that funny, you have the song. However, even then I only found the song to be pretty good. I wouldn't really go back to watch Mimic Madness again the way I would for Feral Friends. Feral Friends had better comedy, and because it was built on comedy first with a good story second, instead of the other way around, I appreciate this episode a lot more. While I will admit that Mimic Madness has a great story, I don't really come to SpongeBob for a great story. I come to it for comedy, generally tied around a loose story, like with Geeks. Hence why I think that would be better than Mimic Madness as well. The same goes here, although one can say that they went above and beyond with the production, but that's a different story. Anyway, do you like this episode? Let me know, and join my Patreon for exclusive reviews like this that you may or may not be seeing months after its release. If you really like this video, you should check out my entire SpongeBob playlist for more content on the famed sea critter. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. I hope your time is well spent, and Alpha out.